you who have heard me read before know I read terribly short chapters because my voice doesn't last. And there's nothing worse than hearing an author's voice creak about halfway through a chapter. We're about halfway through the book of this series, and Nicholas Machiavelli, Billy the Kid, are being taken to see Billy the Kid's elder, whom we haven't been introduced to. Nicholas, and they're being driven by Black Hawk, Native American, wonderful character, also a real historical character. So they're in this stripped down army jeep bouncing along a country road. Just remember that Nicholas and Billy have failed at everything they've set out to do. They were supposed to kill Peronel, release the monsters in Alcatraz. They've done none of that. So they are in deep, deep trouble. So they're bouncing along the road. Niccolo Machiavelli sat in the passenger seat of the stripped down army surplus jeep, touching the bar welded onto the dashboard in a white knuckled grip. Billy sat in the back and whooped delightedly with each bump and dip on the unpaved road. Black Hawk drove the narrow country lanes at high speed, foot pushed hard to the floor, a ferocious grin on his face. "I think," Machiavelli said, shouting to be heard over the noise of the engine, "I think that your master would probably prefer us alive so he can kill us himself. He might be irritated if you do the job for him. Slow down." "Oh, this isn't fast," Black Hawk said. The jeep lurched forward, engine howling as all four wheels left the ground. "Now this is fast." "I'll be sick," Machiavelli promised. "And when I am, I'm going to be sick in your direction. Yours too," he added, looking back over his shoulder at Billy the Kid. Black Hawk reluctantly eased his foot off the accelerator. "I've not lived through more than 500 years of Europe's most turbulent history, only to die in a car crash." Black Hawk could drive these roads wearing a blindfold, Billy said. "I'm sure he could, though why he would want to do so is beyond me." "Have you never done anything purely for the thrill of it?" Black Hawk asked. "No," Machiavelli said, "not for a long time." Black Hawk looked shocked. "That seems like such a waste of immortality. I pity you," he added. "You pity me? You're not living, you're surviving." Niccolo Machiavelli stared at the Native American immortal for a long time, before he finally nodded and looked away. "You might be right at the moment." The house was set back off the road. At first glance, it looked like an ordinary, small timber cottage, similar to so many others scattered across the United States. It was only when one approached closer that the truth was revealed. The house was enormous, much of it built into the side of the hill behind it. Machiavelli felt his skin prickle and crawl the moment the car turned off the rough track onto the narrow rutted drive. The telltale signs of warding spells. There was old magic here, ancient, eldritch power. He caught glimpses of arcane symbols cut into trees, spirals daubed onto rocks, stick figures carved into fence posts. The track cut straight across a field of grass that grew as high as the car doors. The blades rasped and hissed against the metal, sounding like 1,000 warning whispers. The Italian caught flickers of movement all around him, and glimpses of snakes and toads and quick scurrying lizards. A gangling, misshapen crow dominated the field on the left-hand side of the track. Its head was huge. A huge dried pumpkin had been carved into a round-eyed face with a protruding tongue. The grassy field stopped abruptly, as if a line had been drawn in the earth, and the rest of the approach to the house was across perfectly flat land. Machiavelli nodded his approval. Nothing could get through the field without setting off countless alarms, or being attacked by a poisonous, lurking guardian. Getting close to the house undetected would be impossible. An enormous lynx, bigger than any he'd ever seen before, lay on the ground before the open front door, regarding the car impassively, only the tiny movements of its black tufted ears betraying that it was real and not a carving. Black Hawk pulled the jeep up to the house, but kept the engine running and made no move to climb out. "End of the road," he said, without a trace of a smile. Niccolo climbed out gratefully and started to brush the dirt and grit off his expensive handmade suit, then gave up. The suit was ruined. He had a closet full of identical suits in his home in Paris, but he doubted he'd ever get a chance to see them again. Looking around, he breathed in the warm, grassy air. Whenever he thought about dying, which he did with remarkable regularity, he imagined it would take place in a European city, Paris perhaps, maybe even Rome, or his beloved Florence. He never thought he was going to end his days in California. However, he wasn't dead yet, and he wasn't going to go down without a fight. As soon as Billy leapt out of the jeep, Black Hawk put the car in gear and skidded away, showering him and Machiavelli in stones and grit, enveloping them in a cloud of dust. Billy grinned. "I knew he was going to do that." "You seem remarkably cheerful for someone who may be about to die," Machiavelli said. "I've seen men go to their deaths laughing. I've seen others wail and cry. They all died in the end. but those who are laughing seem to have an easier time of it. Do you expect to die here today? Machiavelli asked. Billy laughed. Dying's not something I ever think about. But no, I don't think it's going to happen today. We haven't done anything wrong. The Italian immortal nodded, but said nothing. Mr. Machiavelli doesn't think I have the authority to remove his immortality. He's incorrect. The man who stepped out of the house was short and slender, his skin the colour of brightly polished copper, his face bisected by an enormous hawk-like nose, and dominated by a full white beard that reached to his chest. His eyes were solid black with no white showing. He was dressed simply in white linen trousers and his shirt, and his feet were bare. He smiled, revealing that every one of his teeth had been filed to razor-sharp points. I'm Quetzalcoatl, the feathered serpent. It is an honour to meet you, Lord Quetzalcoatl, Machiavelli began. Oh, call me Cucalcan. Everyone else does, the elder said, and headed back into the house. Machiavelli blinked in surprise. A long serpent's tail, bright with multicoloured feathers trailed behind the elder. Billy caught Machiavelli by the arm. Whatever you do, he whispered urgently, don't mention the tail. So I'm done, and the voice just about made the end.